Have you ever wondered why some seniors seem to drift further and further away from family and friends, ending up alone despite having loved ones nearby? It's a painful truth that many of us don't talk about openly. I've been there myself, feeling the quiet distance grow, not because of illness or money, but because of things we keep around us that silently build walls. It's heartbreaking to realize that what we hold on to might be pushing the people we love away. I remember visiting my own grandmother's house and feeling like a guest in a museum rather than a home filled with warmth. The old furniture, stacks of forgotten projects, and photographs from decades ago filled every corner. At first, it seemed like memories worth cherishing, but the atmosphere was heavy, and conversations often stalled. I'm telling you this because I understand how easy it is to get caught in these patterns. There's no judgment here, just shared experience. The good news is, there's a gentle, simple way to open those doors again. It's not about throwing everything away, but about making room for new memories, comfort, and connection. In this video, I'll share 7 surprising items that could be quietly causing loneliness in seniors' homes and how addressing them can bring your family back closer than ever. Trust me, the next chapter of your life can be filled with warmth, laughter, and belonging. Have you noticed any changes in your family visits or felt the distance growing? I invite you to reflect with me, because you deserve to live your golden years surrounded by love and connection. If you are not subscribed, subscribe and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. Now, let's begin. 1. The Shrine of Past Glory. There's something sacred about the treasures we collect along the winding path of a long life. We keep the trophies, the faded ribbons, the photos yellowed at the edges, and the certificates printed with our names in bold type, a life's proof that we mattered, that our days weren't wasted. Sometimes, these relics are carefully dusted and arranged, lined up on shelves and mantels, each one with a story and a memory attached. It's an instinct, I think, to want to show the world and remind ourselves that our lives have meaning. Yet, have you ever wondered if all these symbols of yesterday might be quietly crowding out the joy of today? Let me tell you about Diane, a woman whose story I'll never forget. Diane was a teacher for more than 30 years in a small Ohio town. Her living room was a mosaic of achievement, awards, plaques, framed newspaper clippings about her star students, and photos of classrooms past. The couch, a sturdy blue piece from the early 90s, was flanked on both sides by end tables piled high with mementos. Programs from school plays she directed, graduation announcements from decades ago, even the odd thank you note from a parent or child who remembered her kindness. Whenever her daughter Jessica visited, the conversation inevitably turned to the old days. Jessica would sit, smiling politely, as Diane recounted the story behind each item. "Do you remember when our debate team went to state?" she'd ask, holding up a medal. Or, "This was from the year our science fair project won first place." The pride in Diane's voice was unmistakable, and at first, Jessica listened eagerly, soaking up the stories and the nostalgia. But as the years went on and Jessica started bringing her daughter along, things changed. Jessica's daughter, let's call her Emma, was a teenager, bright and sensitive. But visiting Grandma's house felt like stepping into a time capsule. Emma could barely find a place to sit that wasn't already claimed by a pillow with a high school mascot or a scrapbook bursting with old photos. After a while, the visits grew shorter, the conversations more strained. Jessica noticed her daughter fidgeting, glancing at her phone, uncomfortable in a space that seemed to celebrate a past she never knew. One Sunday, after an awkward visit, Jessica finally found the courage to speak. "Mom," she said, "I love your stories, but sometimes I wish we could talk about what's going on now." Emma feels a little lost here. It's like we're always guests in your memories, never really living in the present. The words stung, but Diane couldn't ignore the truth. She had become the curator of her museum, one where her greatest days were all in the past, and everyone who walked in was expected to pay homage. That night, Diane sat quietly in her living room, really looking at the things around her. She realized that, while every plaque and photo brought her pride, they also anchored her to a time gone by. Her home, meant to be a gathering place for laughter and new memories, had become a gallery, admired but not truly lived in. The thought weighed heavy on her heart. Was she holding on to her legacy, or was she accidentally pushing away the people she loved? There's a delicate balance, isn't there, between honoring where we've been and making space for what's to come? Our children and grandchildren want to know us, not just as the legends of our youth, but as companions and friends in their lives right now. They want to feel that they matter just as much as those golden days, that there's room for their stories, too. Diane decided to make a change, not by erasing her past, but by carefully choosing what would stay and what could be tucked away for safekeeping. She picked 3 items for each room that truly spoke to her heart. The crystal apple the school board gave her on retirement, the photo of her first class, and the handmade Mother's Day card Jessica created in 3rd grade. The rest she lovingly stored in albums or packed away in boxes labeled with care. Her walls became lighter, her shelves opened for Emma's favorite board games and fresh family photos. The next visit was different. For the first time in years, Jessica and Emma sprawled comfortably on the couch, talking about Emma's plans for college, laughing about silly family stories, and even making new memories with a board game that left the living room filled with shouts of joy. Diane realized she hadn't lost anything important. She'd gained so much, a living, breathing connection with her family. Letting go wasn't easy. There were moments when Diane felt she was erasing herself, diminishing the importance of all she'd accomplished. But with each space on the wall, she saw an invitation for her loved ones to bring their lives into her home, to write new chapters together. The past was honored, not forgotten, but the present finally had a chance to shine. If you find yourself surrounded by your own shrine of past glory, ask yourself, is my home a living space or a monument? Do I leave room for new joys, or have I filled every corner with echoes of yesterday? You don't have to throw away your memories to move forward. Sometimes, all it takes is a little curation, a gentle editing of your story, to let in the light and laughter of today. You're not alone if this feels bittersweet. It takes courage to step out of the museum of your past and invite others to join you in the here and now. But as Diane learned, it's never too late to create new memories, to let your legacy live on, not just in plaques and photographs, but in the hearts of those you love, who want nothing more than to share life with you, right here, right now. 2. The fortress of outdated furniture. If you close your eyes and picture your living room, what do you see? Is it a warm, welcoming space, or does it feel more like a carefully preserved display, locked in time? For many of us, our homes hold pieces of our story. Furniture chosen decades ago, handed down from loved ones or bought in a season when life looked very different. But sometimes, without even noticing, those familiar couches, chairs, and tables transform from comfort to obstacle, quietly keeping family at arm's length. Raymond's story comes to mind, and I suspect it will feel familiar to some of you. He was a proud Texan, widowed at 71, whose house was his castle. The living room was dominated by a massive brown sectional from the late 1980s, soft in places, sand sunken in others. A matching coffee table sat sturdy in front, its wooden frame so heavy you could barely slide it an inch. The dining room boasted a long table with stiff-backed chairs, their upholstery faded but still perfectly intact, having hosted dozens of Thanksgiving dinners in years past. For Raymond, every piece of furniture was loaded with meaning, bought when his sons were small, chosen with his late wife, and carried through moves and milestones. This sofa, he'd say, patting the worn arm, has heard every story my boys ever told. But over the years, something changed. His sons, all grown and living nearby, started suggesting they meet at restaurants for family dinners or inviting Raymond to their homes instead. Holidays, once noisy affairs under his roof, quietly shifted elsewhere. He didn't understand at first. Why, he wondered, didn't they want to come home? It hurt, though he rarely admitted it aloud. He chalked it up to kids being busy, or new traditions. But deep down, He missed the sound of their laughter, the clatter of grandkids running through his hallways. The loneliness grew heavier each year. One evening, after a particularly short visit, Raymond's oldest son lingered in the driveway. "Dad," he started gently, "it's tough for the kids to stay long. That old sofa's just not comfortable anymore. The chairs are so stiff, and we can't play games in the living room. The coffee table's too heavy to move." The words stung, but they were spoken with love. Raymond was quiet, thinking back to his childhood when his parents' home was the center of every gathering. Had he unknowingly built walls around himself with the very things meant to welcome others in? Later that night, Raymond sat on the old sectional, feeling the sag under his weight. He looked around and realized that his home, once a vibrant place of comfort, now felt more like a museum. It was as if he'd frozen it in the happiest moment of his life and never let anything new enter. The heavy furniture, the formal dining set, even the dusty recliner in the corner, each one was a relic of the past, a testament to years gone by. But in their stiffness and immobility, they quietly signaled to his family, "This space is set, unchanged, and not meant for you." If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Change, especially when it means letting go of pieces from your story, is never easy. For Raymond, it was a journey in fits and starts. He began with small steps, first moving the heavy coffee table to the garage. The next weekend, he visited a local furniture store, not for anything fancy, just a couple of modern, comfortable recliners and a lighter coffee table that could be moved for family games. He chose a new sofa, soft and deep, where grandkids could flop and sprawl without fear of breaking anything precious. The transformation was subtle but powerful. The next time his sons and grandchildren came over, something shifted. The grandkids rushed to the new couch, tumbling into each other with giggles. His sons settled in the recliners, relaxed and at home. That night, they played board games in the middle of the living room, the light table sliding easily aside for cards and snacks. Raymond watched the scene, his heart unexpectedly full, and realized what he'd been missing. Not the furniture, but the feeling of togetherness he hadn't felt in years. There was a lesson in Raymond's story that bears repeating. The furniture we choose for comfort and memory can, over time, become a fortress that keeps others out. It's not about money or fashion. It's about creating a space that says, "You belong here, right now." When our homes invite people to stay, to relax, to share themselves, relationships can thrive. When our living rooms feel like rooms in a castle, formal, untouchable, or just plain uncomfortable, loved ones start to drift away. If you're reading this and thinking of the old sofa you never sit on, or the dining table used only for special occasions, know that you're not alone. So many of us cling to the familiar, not out of stubbornness but out of love for the memories they represent. But there's room for new memories, too. For game nights, movie marathons, long talks over coffee, and naps with grandkids curled up beside you. It doesn't take a fortune to make a change. Sometimes, all it takes is one new chair, a rearranged room, or simply moving a heavy table aside to open up space for connection. The past is honored in every nick and scratch, but the present, the laughter, the hugs, the late-night chats, that's what makes a house feel like home. Raymond would tell you himself, what matters most isn't the furniture, but the people it brings together. So take a look around your home. Is it a place where comfort comes first, where your family lingers just a little longer? If not, maybe it's time for a gentle update, a small act of love that unlocks your home for the next chapter of joy. And remember, the greatest treasure your house can offer isn't the sofa or the table, but the arms open wide to welcome everyone in. 3. The Museum of Broken Dreams. Every home tells a story, and often, the things we keep tucked away in corners or spread across tables are more than just objects. They're chapters of dreams, some fulfilled, others left unfinished. If you walk into Gloria's house in Michigan, you might immediately sense the presence of dreams paused somewhere along the way. Her dining table, once alive with laughter and shared meals, had slowly vanished under a mountain of fabric scraps, half-finished quilts, and baskets of knitting supplies. What started as a hobby, a spark of joy in retirement, had grown over the years into a sort of monument, a museum of unfinished projects and broken dreams. It's a sight that's more common than we realize, especially as we grow older and the seasons of life shift. There's a certain comfort in keeping our hobbies close. The watercolor set you once loved, the woodworking tools gathering dust in the garage, the boxes of beads, paints, puzzles, and scrapbooks, each holds a memory, a hope that maybe someday you'll pick them up again. But somewhere along the line, the joy of possibility can quietly turn into a heavy reminder of what we haven't finished. And, as Gloria learned, it can have a subtle yet powerful effect on the people we love. Gloria's daughter, Amy, used to love coming home. Sunday dinners were a family tradition: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and stories shared around the table. But as the years passed and Gloria's creative energy waned, that same table became impossible to clear. Each time Amy suggested a family meal at home, there was simply nowhere to sit. The chairs, too, were piled with sewing patterns and fabric. The living room held boxes of yarn and paints. Even the hallway was lined with abandoned projects that might be finished one day. It might sound trivial, but over time, the feeling in the house changed. Instead of warmth and welcome, there was an undercurrent of sadness and guilt, both for Gloria and her family. Every visit became a reminder of what wasn't done. Instead of asking about Amy's new job or her grandchildren's latest adventures, conversations stalled at the question, "Are you still working on that quilt?" The answer was always the same: "I'll finish it soon." But the truth was, Gloria's eyesight wasn't what it used to be, and her hands tired easily. She felt embarrassed to admit it, so she let the projects accumulate, hoping that one day her old spark would return. Amy, meanwhile, grew hesitant to bring her children over. There was nowhere for them to play, nowhere to sit for a meal. Instead, she'd suggest meeting at a restaurant or inviting her mother to her house. The joyful family gatherings became less frequent, replaced by short visits and polite excuses. Gloria could sense the shift, and though she tried not to show it, she felt the loneliness creep in. The turning point came quietly, as these moments often do. One evening, after a particularly short visit, Gloria wandered through her house, touching the piles of fabric and unfinished crafts. Each one was a memory of hope, but also a reminder of limits she hadn't wanted to face. She realized that, without meaning to, she'd filled her home, and her life, with reminders of things she could no longer do. Instead of inspiration, these objects became silent witnesses to what had been lost. More importantly, they built a barrier between herself and the people she loved most. It took courage, but Gloria reached out to Amy. They spent a weekend together, sorting through the stacks. There was laughter and a few tears as they reminisced about projects started long ago and dreams that had since shifted. They decided together what to keep, just a small box of supplies for crafts Gloria could still enjoy, and what to let go. The rest they donated to a local senior center, where others could find new joy in the materials that had gathered dust for years. The change was immediate and profound. With the table cleared and the chairs open, Amy and her children returned for Sunday dinner. The house felt lighter, not just in space but in spirit. There was room for new memories, for games, and for the stories that come when people are comfortable enough to stay a while. Gloria didn't feel any less herself for letting go of the clutter. In fact, she felt a sense of relief, as if she'd made space not just in her home, but in her heart. If you look around and see your own museum of broken dreams, those unfinished projects and unused hobbies gathering dust, know that you're not alone. It's natural to want to hold on, to believe that someday you'll return to them. But ask yourself, are these things bringing you joy, or quietly reminding you of things that are no longer possible? Are they inviting your family in, or making it harder for them to connect with you? Letting go isn't about giving up on yourself or forgetting your passions. It's about choosing the pieces of your story that bring you happiness today and making space for the people and moments that matter most now. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is clear the table and say, "I'm ready for something new." The most beautiful chapters might still be waiting to be written, not with thread and needle, but with laughter, love, and family gathered around you once more. 4. The prison of plastic protection. There's something universal about wanting to keep the things we love safe, especially as we get older. Maybe it starts with a favorite chair or a prized set of living room furniture. You remember the day you brought it home, how new it smelled, how perfect it looked in the corner by the window. Maybe you promised yourself you'd keep it nice, protect it from spills, stains, or the roughhousing of grandchildren. Out came the plastic covers, the protective films, the slipcovers zipped up so tightly that every armrest and cushion seemed to whisper, "Look, but don't touch." Arthur knew that feeling well. At 69, retired from a life of fixing cars, he took pride in the orderliness of his Florida home. Every upholstered chair and couch wore a shiny coat of plastic, transparent, squeaky, and always slightly sticky in the heat. Even the lampshades had covers, and the TV remote controls were wrapped in clear bags, just in case. For Arthur, it felt responsible, almost loving, like a sign of someone who took care of what he'd worked hard to buy. He believed these small acts would preserve his home for years to come. But then, something subtle changed. His granddaughter, Sophia, used to bounce in eagerly every Sunday, a blur of giggles and sneakers. Yet lately, she seemed hesitant. She'd perch on the very edge of the plastic couch, careful not to shift or leave a mark. One afternoon, she asked, "Grandpa, can I have my snack in here?" Arthur shook his head. "Not on the couch, sweetheart. You know the rules." He didn't see the sadness flicker across her face as she retreated to the kitchen. It wasn't long before Sophia's visits grew shorter. She brought books to read alone, sat quietly, and rarely asked for sleepovers anymore. The truth is, the urge to protect can sometimes turn into a barrier, a kind of plastic prison, see-through but very real, keeping out not just dust and crumbs, but laughter, closeness, and comfort. The very things meant to keep our homes perfect can slowly steal away the joyful chaos that makes life beautiful. It's not just about the furniture. It's a message, even if we never say it out loud. My things are more important than your comfort, or I worry you might not take care of what I treasure. Arthur didn't realize any of this until one day, Sophia, just 8 years old, looked at him with all the sincerity children can muster and asked, "Grandpa, do you love your couch more than me?" The question stopped him in his tracks. He chuckled at first, but then saw the serious look in her eyes, the way she hugged her knees tightly to her chest. That night, Arthur couldn't sleep. He remembered his own grandmother's house, the faded couch, no covers at all, just an old quilt draped across the back. He remembered feeling welcome, sprawling out with cousins, sometimes falling asleep in a pile. Not once did anyone care about a stain or a scratch. The memory brought tears to his eyes. He started to notice the way his home sounded when everyone left. Quiet, too quiet, as if the plastic covers muffled not just spills but conversation and connection. He saw how his living room, though spotless, felt cold and unused. And he wondered if the price of preservation had become just too high. The next weekend, Arthur made a decision. With trembling hands, he peeled the plastic from every chair and sofa. He tossed the remote covers in the trash. It felt almost rebellious, a little scary. The fabric underneath was still beautiful, softer than he remembered, and somehow warmer, too. He called Sophia and told her the news. "No more plastic, kiddo. Come see for yourself." That Sunday, Sophia ran straight to the living room, flopped down on the bare couch, and laughed. Arthur realized it was the first time in years he'd heard her sound so free. Family dinners stretched longer after that. His daughter started bringing dessert, and soon, the living room echoed with stories, spilled popcorn, and even the occasional accidental juice stain. nothing a little water and a rag couldn't handle. The plastic prison was gone, and in its place grew a new sense of belonging. If you walk through your home and find yourself saying, "Careful, don't touch," more often than "Come in, make yourself comfortable," it might be time to rethink what matters. The urge to protect is understandable. We all want to hold on to what we cherish. But sometimes, the greatest act of love is to let go a little, to choose connection over perfection, comfort over control. It takes courage to strip away the barriers, plastic or otherwise, that keep us separate from the ones we love. But the rewards are worth it. Arms thrown around your shoulders, laughter ringing off the walls, a house alive with memories in the making. Your couch might earn a few stains and scuffs along the way, but your heart will fill with the moments you almost missed. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. After all, a home is meant to be lived in, not just looked at. The shine of plastic fades, but the glow of shared happiness? That's what makes a house a home. If you've been protecting your things at the cost of connection, consider peeling back those covers. You might be surprised how much more beautiful life can be, unwrapped, unguarded, and wide open to love. 5. The Hoarder's Gallery of Guilt. There's a room in every house, or maybe a closet, a basement corner, a garage shelf, that collects not just dust, but memories, intentions, and all too often, a silent, nagging sense of guilt. You might call it your just-in-case room, or maybe it's the place where things go that you're just not ready to let go of. For Bernice, a 72-year-old mother and grandmother in Oregon, it was the spare bedroom at the end of the hall, a space she tried not to think about, except when she needed to close the door quickly before the family arrived. Bernice's spare room was a maze of boxes, bags, old kitchen gadgets, stacks of outgrown clothes, shoes she hadn't worn in years, and furniture that never quite made it to the donation center. When her son Michael and his family visited, the children always ended up sleeping on air mattresses in the living room because the spare bed was buried under so much stuff. Each year, as birthdays and holidays came and went, the piles grew, little by little. "I paid good money for that," she'd protest when Michael suggested sorting through the clutter, or, "I might need this someday." But inside, Bernice knew the truth. She hadn't touched most of it in years. At first, the clutter was easy to ignore. She'd close the door, pour herself a cup of tea, and focus on the cozy kitchen instead. But soon, the spare room became an unspoken presence, a heavy cloud that followed her into conversations with her family. Michael's kids would ask, "Grandma, can we have a sleepover?" And Bernice's heart would twist a little, knowing she couldn't offer them a real bed. When Michael gently brought up the topic of decluttering, she'd grow defensive and anxious, dreading the confrontation and the memories each box held. It's a funny thing, the way possessions become a kind of armor, protecting us from hard decisions, shielding us from admitting that time has passed and our needs have changed. For Bernice, every object in that room represented a decision she'd put off, a bread maker from the days when she baked every Sunday, winter coats from when she traveled up north, puzzles she meant to finish with Michael's kids but never did. There was the guilt over money spent, the regret over opportunities missed, and the fear that letting go was somehow giving up on a happier past or a possible future. What she didn't realize was how much this gallery of guilt affected her family. The clutter wasn't just taking up physical space, it was taking up emotional space, too. Her son's visits grew shorter, and conversations about family gatherings at her home became less frequent. Michael's children associated Grandma's house with stress, navigating the piles, stepping around obstacles, and never quite able to settle in or relax. And while everyone tiptoed around the subject, the tension lingered in the air, unspoken but undeniable. The turning point came one Saturday morning when Michael, seeing the disappointment in his children's faces after another failed sleepover, decided to speak plainly. He sat down with Bernice, his tone gentle but earnest. "Mom, I know you're holding on to a lot in that room. But the kids want to be here, to stay over and make memories with you. It's not about the stuff, it's about the time we could be sharing, the moments were missing. Those words pierced the wall Bernice had built around her heart. She thought back to her childhood visits to her grandmother's home, a house that was far from perfect, but always open, always full of love and welcome. She remembered the freedom she felt, the sense of belonging, and how little the objects in the house actually mattered compared to the feeling of being together. With Michael's help, Bernice made a brave decision. Anything she hadn't used in a year would have to go. It wasn't easy. Every box was a journey through memory and emotion. Some items were easy to let go of, their usefulness long gone. Others brought tears or laughter as she and Michael reminisced together. There were moments of stubbornness, too, when she clung to something just in case. But with each bag packed and each piece donated or recycled, the burden grew lighter. As the room emptied, something shifted in Bernice's spirit. The space that had once caused her shame became a source of pride and possibility. She set up a guest bed with fresh sheets, brought in a reading lamp, and placed a vase of flowers on the nightstand. When Michael and his family arrived the next weekend, the children rushed down the hall, squealing with delight at the new room. That night, they piled into the bed, giggling and telling stories, and for the first time in years, Bernice felt truly at home in her own house. Decluttering isn't just about making space for things, it's about making space for people, for joy and new memories. It's about forgiving yourself for past purchases, letting go of what-ifs, and choosing what matters most right now. If you have your own gallery of guilt, know that you're not alone, and there's no shame in asking for help to sort through it. The greatest treasures you have aren't the things you've collected, but the love and laughter you can share with the people who want to be close to you. When you clear away the clutter, you're not just freeing up a room. You're opening your life and your heart to more of what matters. Sometimes, all it takes is one open door to let happiness back in. 6. The Shrine of Departed Souls. There's a special kind of love that lingers long after someone has passed. A love so deep that it can fill every corner of a home with memories and reminders. For many seniors, honoring the departed is not just a ritual. It's a way of keeping their presence alive, a bridge to the past that offers comfort and connection. But sometimes, in holding on so tightly, our homes transform into something else. A shrine that, unintentionally, can create distance between the living and those who remain. Walter's story is a tender one. A widower in his mid-70s living in New York, Walter's home was a testament to the life he had shared with his late wife, Margaret. Her clothes still hung neatly in the closet, her favorite shawl draped over a chair, and every surface held photographs of her smile frozen in time. The nightstand beside Walter's bed was carefully arranged with her medications as if she might return any moment. To Walter, these objects were sacred, reminders of a love that shaped his world. But when his daughter Karen brought her boyfriend home to meet Walter, the young man felt something unsettling, like walking into a tomb rather than a home. He later told Karen, "It felt like your mom was still here, but I wasn't sure if there was room for me." Karen shared this with Walter, gently explaining that while the memories were precious, the overwhelming presence of Margaret's belongings made it hard for the living to find their place. Grief counselor Dr. Maria Santos explains this delicate balance. Grief is a natural, necessary process, she says. But when a home becomes dominated by memorials, it can send a message that the person who passed is more present than those still here. Family members may feel excluded or that they can never measure up to the memories being preserved. Walter hadn't meant to push anyone away. To him, keeping Margaret's things close was a way to keep her spirit alive and to hold on to the happiest years of his life. Yet, over time, the home that once felt warm became heavy with absence. Karen noticed that visits were shorter, conversations often circled back to Margaret, and the room for new memories seemed to shrink. One evening, after a long talk with Karen, Walter began to see things differently. He realized that while honoring Margaret was vital, it didn't mean the present had to be overshadowed. With Karen's support, he carefully chose a special corner in his bedroom to keep a few meaningful items: a framed photo, a piece of jewelry, and the shawl he'd wrapped around her on cold nights. The rest of the memorabilia was packed away, gently stored in boxes to be revisited when he felt ready. The change was remarkable. Walter's common areas, the living room, kitchen, and dining space, felt lighter and more inviting. Family members, including Karen's boyfriend, began to visit more often and stay longer. New pictures of grandchildren playing were added alongside the cherished memories. The home was no longer a museum of the past, but a welcoming place for the present and future. This story is not about forgetting or disrespect. It's about creating healthy boundaries in grief, allowing the love for those we've lost to coexist with the love for those still here. It's about opening a space where family members feel valued, seen, and free to build new memories alongside old ones. If you find yourself surrounded by the shrine of departed souls, take a moment to ask, is my home a living space that embraces today, or is it a museum where the living feel like visitors? You don't have to let go of your grief or diminish your love. Instead, you can create a balance, a sanctuary that honors the past but invites the warmth of the present. Grief is a journey, not a destination. It's okay to hold on to memories, but it's also okay to make room for new joys. Your departed loved ones would want nothing more than for you to keep living fully, loving deeply, and welcoming those around you into your heart and home. Remember, the most beautiful tribute you can give is not just in preserving memories, but in living a life that honors their legacy. A life filled with connection, laughter, and love that continues to grow. 7. The arsenal of ancient grudges. There's a quiet weight that some people carry, an invisible burden made heavier by years, sometimes decades, of unresolved hurts, disappointments, and old fights. It's what I call the arsenal of ancient grudges. This isn't about the things you can hold in your hands, but the memories and emotions stored away like weapons, sharpened over time, ready to be pulled out whenever old wounds reopen. For many seniors, this arsenal shapes the atmosphere of their homes and the tone of their relationships, often without them even realizing the damage it does. Pauline's story is one many can relate to. At 74, she lived in a charming California bungalow filled with reminders, not of happy memories, but of past conflicts. Her coffee table was a sort of shrine to grievances, letters from estranged family members, legal documents from disputes, and photographs that told stories of betrayal and blame. Every visit with her son David felt like stepping into a courtroom drama. The air was thick with tension, and conversations often spiraled into rehashing old wrongs. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. David, a patient man but growing weary, found himself dreading visits. He didn't want his children exposed to the constant negativity. The scores kept like precious trophies. What was meant to be family time became a minefield of criticism and resentment. The children sensed it too. They pulled away, learning early that family meant conflict rather than comfort. But Pauline's arsenal wasn't always so tangible. Sometimes it lived in the stories she told repeatedly. Stories about who hurt her, how she was wronged, and how certain family members never made things right. These narratives became her armor and her prison. Each retelling reinforced old wounds, making forgiveness feel impossible and new joy out of reach. Family therapist Dr. Robert Kim has spent decades witnessing this cycle. He explains, holding on to past grievances can become self-fulfilling. When a person constantly reminds others of their mistakes, those others stop trying to make amends. It creates a toxic environment where love struggles to survive. The hardest truth Pauline had to face was that her anger, her need to be right, was pushing away the very people she loved. David made one last heartfelt attempt. Sitting across from her, he said, "Mom, I can't change the past, but I'm trying to build a future with you. Every time I visit, you remind me why I'm not enough, why I don't measure up. My kids are learning that family means criticism, disappointment, and blame. Is that the legacy you want to leave?" Those words hit Pauline like a thunderclap. For the first time, she saw how her arsenal of grudges was not protecting her. it was isolating her. She realized forgiveness wasn't about excusing the past but freeing herself to experience joy again. It meant consciously choosing to focus on the present and the future instead of the disappointments that had defined her for so long. The process wasn't easy. Pauline began by physically removing all visible reminders of past conflicts. Letters, documents, photographs, packing them away or letting them go. She sought therapy to work through her pain and learn how to communicate without blame. Gradually, she opened her heart to new opportunities for connection, allowing vulnerability to replace defense. 6 months later, Pauline's home and relationships were transformed. She hosted family dinners where laughter replaced tension, conversations grew lighter, and her grandchildren felt safe and loved. Her son called 3 times a week, and even old friends started reaching out again, drawn by the warmth and welcome she now radiated. If you find yourself holding on to old grudges or replaying painful stories, know that you're not alone, and you have the power to change. Every minute spent reliving hurts is a minute stolen from building new joy. Your arsenal may feel like protection, but it's often the greatest barrier to love. It takes courage to lay down old weapons and open your heart. But the freedom on the other side is worth every step. Imagine a life where every conversation is an opportunity to connect, where forgiveness creates space for laughter, and where your legacy is one of love, not resentment. You deserve that peace. Your family deserves that connection. And the best chapter of your story may be just ahead, waiting for you to turn the page. As we come to the close of this journey, I want you to take a moment and truly reflect on what you've heard. These 7 hidden barriers, the shrines of past glory, the fortress of outdated furniture, the museum of broken dreams, the prison of plastic protection, the gallery of guilt, the shrine of departed souls, and the arsenal of ancient grudges, are not just things or spaces. They are choices we make every day, sometimes without even realizing it, that shape the way we connect with the people we love most. I know it's not easy to face these truths. I've been there too, grappling with memories and possessions that felt like pieces of myself. But here's the good news. Change is possible, and it doesn't require grand gestures. Sometimes, it's the small, brave decisions. Letting go of one old photo, clearing a chair for someone to sit, peeling off a plastic cover, that opens the door to new beginnings. Imagine your home not as a museum of the past, but as a living space full of warmth, laughter, and fresh memories. Picture your family gathering around you, drawn not by duty, but by love and comfort. That future is within reach. You deserve to live your golden years surrounded by connection and joy. The choice is yours to make today. What will you let go of to make room for love? Share your thoughts and experiences below. I'd love to hear what this journey has stirred in you. And if this message touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories and support to help you thrive in this beautiful chapter of life.